What's up, guys? Wade Willis here for my playthrough of Umineko, Chapter 5, I think, Part 9, could be Part 10. Yeah, we're starting to get into some of the craziness, and yeah, I'm excited to see what happens from here. And yeah, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for tons of When They Cry content, and yeah, let's get into it. On, go. I guess you should. The rain was still pouring it down as hard as ever. This weather was supposed to continue all day tomorrow as well, which made me feel a bit depressed. Oh wait, given the time, I should say today, not tomorrow. But that doesn't really matter now. I'm sleepy. With half asleep eyes, I opened my umbrella. The large drops of rain pounded mercilessly against it. Technically, the end of the family conference had been declared at 1 a.m. But external scuffles kept it continuously sluggishly. I'm really jealous of Aunt Rosa, who managed to slip out of there at that time. She cleverly got away by saying she'd have to check on Maria, who might have been staying up too late. Dad caught me ruining my chance to escape, and they made me stick around until 3 a.m. Jesus. So what have they decided on after all this time? Nothing at all, of course. They just kept on arguing about who said what like elementary school kids. I'm sure they're tired too. That's probably why they kept dragging on with the same pointless questions. Yep. Okay. I no longer feel any shock or anger towards them. I guess drowsiness is the best painkiller. I left them behind and finally returned to the guest house. When I got back to the guest house, the first floor lounge was lit. I could even hear people chatting inside. Apparently some people were still awake even this late. Despite the late hour, Goda and Nanja were still up, chatting. Plates and cups were lined up on the counter, and it looked almost like the bar with Goda-san as the bartender. When they noticed I had returned, they seemed to finally realize how late it was. When Goda made to top off Dr. Nanja's glass, the latter declined in an exaggerated gesture.
もう結構です。この時間では夜更かしのしすぎだ。
もうこんな時間とは、南條先生があまりにお話がお上手なもので、ついつい。
それを言ったらあんたの酒の魚のおかげだ。また別の機会に一杯やりましょう。
喜んで。バトラ様、お帰りなさいませ。まだ旦那様方の会議は続いておりますか？
あの調子でぐだぐだと明け方までやるんだろう。
So I guess the weird thing is, I think usually by this time 6 people had died.
知ったことじゃねえぜ。
Which, unless he goes upstairs and finds Maria, George, I don't know. I don't know if the numbers can even add up to 6 at this point. I spoke carelessly with a big yawn.
皆さん、案外体力が終わりですね。びっくりです。
なんだ、お前までいたのか。
なんとなく流れでこちらでささやかな夜会が始まったもので混ぜてもらっていました。例のことは話してませんのでご安心を。
Erika could be seated on the sofa. She had taken her shoes off and was lounging around as though she owned the place.
エリカ様も本当にいろいろなお話をご存知で、とても楽しく聞かせていただきました。
あんたは本当に博識だ。
I mean, she has lived like thousands of years technically, right?
若いのに大したもんだよ。
どういたしまして。フルドエリカはこの程度には博識ですので。
Erika grabbed the corners of her skirt and posed. This was somewhat less than graceful considering that she was lounging on the sofa with her feet up.
ローザおばさんは
午前の1時頃にお戻りになりましたが、すぐに上がられお休みになら
That's
れま
probably
した。
true. After taking part in that conference for so long, I feel like flopping down in a bed right away myself. I've had it. I'm tired enough that I might flop over right here.
さあ、私たちもこれくらいにしましょう。郷田さんも明日の朝食の準備で朝が早いのでしょう。
朝食の仕込みはすでに済んでおります。どうぞ明日の朝食も大いにご期待いただければ幸いです。
In Goda's eyes, the family conference is an open stage on which he can display his culinary skills. Maybe this invigorates him so much he doesn't even get sleepy. Erika stood up, laughing at how youthful Goda was. This became a sign that it was time to disperse.
お片付けはどうぞ皆様はお休みを。
Leaving the cleanup to Goda, I went to the bathroom and then climbed up the stairs to the second floor.
それでは皆さんおやすみなさい。老骨にはちと夜更かしが過ぎましたな。
おやすみなさい、南條先生。おやすみなさい、バトラさん。
おう、おやすみ。
Then, in the second floor hallway, we split up. Oh, Dr. Nanjo went to his own room. Erika went to her room. And I returned to the cousin room. Alright, let's see if the cousins are alive. I couldn't hear any sounds of playing coming from our room. Could they have fallen asleep already? No surprise at that time of night. They were probably, if they were still playing, they would have been staying up way too late. Alright, the moment of truth. When I opened the door quietly, as expected the room was already pitch black, except for a small nightlight. Everyone was already sleeping in their beds. I'm sure they all had a great time and played a ton. Then they had probably talked about youthful things and enjoyed staying up late. If only I hadn't found the gold, I would have enjoyed my time with them. I'm already tired. So tired. Forgetting even to change my clothes and brush my teeth, I crawled into bed and immediately began to descend into the marshes of sleep. Today's been so insane. I wonder if that old bastard is still in the family conference right now. How does he not get tired? Come to think of it, what was it that old bastard said when we parted company?
明日家族で重要な話がしたい。お前に関わることだ。
Here we go. I'm sure it's more stuff about being the successor. I don't even want to hear about it.
こいつを話せば俺は殺されるだろうな。
I'll kill you whenever you want, you old bastard. And then, what was it that he said next? Well, he's definitely dying.
お前の生まれ
I
につい
knew
て
there
の
was
話
something weird about that. My birth? Probably just something about the noble Ushiromiya lineage. Not interested. Just let me sleep. And then we have the one dude calling threats to, the sound of crashing waves, the sound of the tide surging, the sound of the sea breeze. Whenever my headache torments me, these are the sounds that fill my head. Unable to bear successor, I was in a very difficult position with regard to the Ushiromi family. Whenever I heard of a drug or an incense that could make you achieve a pregnancy, I tried it. Okay, so this is coming from, what's her name's head. But nothing had any effect. Until I was blessed with Jessica 18 years ago. I was ashamed even to call myself a wife.
子をなすのは二人の努力と天の気まぐれ。そなたばかりが責められたのでは割が合わぬな。
何が原因で解任できなかったのかは名医のもとにも通いました。屈辱的な検査も受けました。しかしいつも理由はわからないと言われるだけでした。
結婚から短くない時間を経て未だ子をなるほどな。次期当主を密かに狙うエヴァが首をもたげぬわけもない。
Ava tried to convince father that I was a failure as the successor's wife. It was a time when Kinzo was also very disappointed by my husband's repeated business failures. On the other hand, Ava's husband Hideyoshi's business was growing well and completely the opposite of my husband's. He was the only person who could bring father good news. So perhaps father couldn't be blamed if he decided to lend an ear to Ava's words, or even accept them completely. It was all my fault because I couldn't bear a child.
そなたに罪などない。この国の赤ん坊はコウノトリが運んでくるのであろうが、裁かれるならそれはコウノトリになるのが道理というものよ。
Does that story come from Japan, or I thought that was American?
しかし、いくら当時はまだご健康とはいえ、すでにご高齢の当主様が早く孫の顔を見たいと思われていたことは想像に難くありません。
知るか。孫が欲しくばうなるほど持っている金で好きにすればよかろうに。金で生み出せぬものはない。
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was that focused on that.
孫が欲しくば自慢の金で何とかすればよいものを。
そうです。当主様は
I mean, he could have given her money to like adopt or something, and we technically wouldn't be the same bloodline, but whatever. The head gave to many charities, thinking it the duty to anyone with possession of so much money. One of among these, an orphanage, there we go, known as the Funkin House, had been given especially large donations, possibly because he had old ties with that place. Yeah, that whole thing is interesting.
ああ、福音の家か。よくあそこから家具どもがやってきていたな。
当主様は社会活動と職業訓練の一環として福音の家の子たちの中から成績優秀な子を使用人として受け入れていました。
I mean,
当家にいる
there's so much left of the story. We're like barely, technically, what, halfway through?
音の名を持つ使用人はすべてそこからやってきた子たちでした。
Hold on. Lunon, Manon, Leon. Okay. We haven't met 3 of those people. Correct?
いろいろな連中がいたな。多くはほんの数年で辞めるがな。
当家の給金は数年も働けば十分社会で生活していけるだけたまるでしょうし、後宮家での使用人経験は履歴書に通用する立派な肩書きになります。それを得て社会へ羽ばたいてくれれば当主様もきっと本望だったでしょう。
なるほど、養子か。
I wonder if Battler is actually... Is Battler maybe actually Kinzo's son? In some weird thing?
今、なんとお
What
っしゃ
if
いました？
Battler was Beatrice's son?
この赤子を我が孫として迎えよ。
おお、よしよしよし。よしよしよしよし。
So this is Jessica then? Apparently the baby that Kumasama was trying to sue didn't like to study air at all. It kept crying, upset.
申し訳ありません。私には何をおっしゃっているのか。
この赤子を我が孫として迎えよ。そしてクラウスの後を継ぐ者として育てるのだ。
それはつまり私と。
そうだ。お前に子が宿せぬことはもはや
Oh, so then she
明
probably
白。
got pregnant right after and then just gave the baby back to the orphanage?
お前の体には何かしらの問題があるに違いない。
ああ、よしよしよし。おーよしよしよし。
As though she couldn't hear our discussion in the slightest, Kumasawa kept trying to cuddle the baby. This made it even cry even louder.
暴言だな。女の責任だけで子が産めるなら、この世に男など必要ないわ。
あの日の悔しさを忘れたことはありません。私とて子が欲しくなかったわけがない。でもいくら祈ろうとも身ごもれないのです。私の体に原因があるのではないかといくつもの名医
Did
を
Kraus
尋ね
ever
歩
get
きました。
checked? I guess is the thing.
しかしそれでもいくら努力しても身ごもれなかったのです。
その挙句がこの察するぞ。
The baby had been picked up by the Fukian house just recently. Of course, you couldn't help but feel compassion for this child, who was young and who had already lost its parents' affection. However, it brought me nothing but pain and sadness. But why should I be forced to hold this baby, who not only shared none of my blood, double negative, but who was not related to my husband in the slightest either?
お父様を恨んではいません。もし恨めるのなら、ただ
This poor lady.
自分の憎かったんです。子を宿せぬ我が身がひたすらに憎かったから私は祈りました。天使と悪魔の両方に。そしてその
天使には何と祈ったか。
私の体に奇跡を。私の体に問題があるというならそれを受け入れましょう。ならばそれを克服してどうか夫の子を授かることのできる奇跡を私に。
その願いはあなたはその次の年に見事にジェシカを産むことになる。
そして悪魔には何と祈ったか。
悔しい悔しい、この身が恨めしい。そしてそれを見せつけるかのようなこの赤ん坊が憎かったんです。
何を願われたのですか。
私は初めて悪魔に祈りました。この赤ん坊が消えてなくなってしまえばいいのにって。
Of course, that wish was also granted by demons. On that day, I left the baby with an older servant and went to think about the future of the rose garden. No, that's a lie. I didn't want to think about anything. The baby's cries were annoying, so I ordered the servant to take the baby to a place where I couldn't hear. By a place where I couldn't hear, I meant somewhere far away. Yes, I wished for it. I wished for the servant to take the baby far away and never return.
なるほど。雪吊りの悪魔が夏日様のその願いを聞いてしまったのですな。
してどうなったのか。
それは悪魔が願いを叶えてくれたとしか思えない奇妙な事故でした。
The woodland path from the rose garden to the harbor is probably well suited for a comfortable walk. It must surely feel good to occasionally leave the path and walk through a grove of trees depending on your mood. However, wouldn't that path be fairly hard to travel on when taking a walk with a baby in your arms?
その先は断崖でした。高さは多分10メートルくらいはあったと思います。下は岩場。
It's probably like, what, 35 feet? Is a meter's bigger than a yard?
そこには柵もあったのです。その使用人はわざわざそんなところまで赤ん坊を抱いたまま歩いていき、そして柵に寄りかかったとでも言うの。まるで悪魔に手招きされて誘われたとしか思えない。
誘われちゃったのね。あなたの願いを聞いた悪魔がその使用人を招き。
それではその使用人と赤ん坊は
死にました。崖から転落して。いえ、私が願ったから死んだ。だからこれは
そなたのせいではない。
Yeah, I mean, wishing that it's not good, but
その先を考える必要はないぞ。
でも私が願ったから。
いや違う。願えども叶えるか否かは神と悪魔と魔女の気まぐれ。そなたに罪はない。人間に罪はない。わらわが殺したことにしてもよい。いや、わらわが殺した。嘆くそなたを不憫に思い。
Is she just saying this to make her feel
赤子を連れ
better?
た使用人を崖へ誘い、その下に導いたのだ。
不幸な事故があっただけではありませんか。事故で納得がいかなくば我らの仕業に。そのための悪魔でございますよ。
そうだわ。私たちはそのためにいるのだ
So
わ。
they're trying to help her out here.
あなたが殺したわけもない。私たちが殺し、だからあなたには何の罪もない。だからどうか自身を責めないで、夏日。
そうでしょうか。本当に私に罪
So
は
were
ないの
their
でしょう
bodies
か。
ever found? I guess is the question, right?
ああ、ないぞ。19年前の復讐を名乗るワーコードめ。呪うならわらわを呪うがよいわ。しかし呪うは魔女の専売特許よ。夏日に売りしその喧嘩、わらわが買おうではないか。わらわは後ろ宮家顧問錬金術師、使えし主に売りし喧嘩はわらわが買おうぞ。19年前の復讐とな。1000年の魔女の前にその程度の年月、瞬きに19年前にそなたの死を願った夏日が憎いか。思い出させてやろうぞ。そなたを崖下へ誘ったのは誰かをな。
As the middle-aged female servant curled the sobbing baby, she walked on a small path through the trees. Natsui had told her the baby was too loud, so she tried to get far away from the rose garden as she could. She was completely unaware as why she'd gone out of her way to head this direction. However, the sobbing baby suddenly stopped crying. Something was reflected in its eyes, but the servant couldn't tell what. However, thinking that this baby had stopped because it had taken an interest in something, she headed in the direction of the baby's gaze. The baby had seen a cloud of gold butterflies disappearing off into the trees, and on the other side of the trees the servant could see a woman. Who? She didn't recognize this person, but it didn't look like anyone who was supposed to be there. The baby stopped crying and stared in that direction, and the servant's legs started to automatically carry her that way.
こちらへ来い、女。その呪われた赤子を抱いてな。
The woman couldn't disobey. She was completely overwhelmed by Beato's gold-glowing eyes. She walked lightly as though through a dream world. At some point, the scenery surrounding her had changed, but she didn't notice. She could not notice. Though this should have been Rokujima. At some point, it had become the garden of the mansion she had never seen before. It was a garden that she had never set eyes on, even grandeur than the great rose garden of the Ushiromi family, a garden of gold roses. There stood an arbor. A woman wearing an elegant dress beckoned to her. There was a man who looked like a butler, and the tea he poured with a beautiful gesture had a very nice and enticing smell. It was as though they were telling her to join the tea party. She couldn't disobey. She had to go to the master of this golden rose garden and give this child as an offering.
許せ女魔女に見入られた不運を呪いそしてこの世で決してめでることかなわぬ黄金のバラガップはい了解
When Gop snapped her fingers, a pitchback hole at the woman's feet, and she was swallowed up along with the baby. The scene in the moment that followed must have burned itself into the eyes of the woman and the baby. The two floated in the air and looked down at the gold rose garden spread out below them. Below their feet was not the earth, but a golden rose garden that stretched as far as the eye could see, without any gaps. If one could have this scene imprinted on their minds as their last memory, that would be such a merciful way to die. Then the woman and the baby were swallowed up by the golden sea. Thunk was a remarkable plain and remarkable quiet for a sound that stole away 2 lives. However, it made for a perfectly suitable show at a tea party of witches. Okay. With the woman and the baby at the center, the rose garden was slowly swallowed up by darkness. The sound of the wind grew stronger bit by bit. Is that TV static? What is that noise? It was the roar of the sea. The two had fallen into the thicket of golden roses from that great height and died. Were gradually wrapped up into the roar of the sea and wrapped in the scenery of the beach below the cliff.
わらわが保証すそなたには何の罪もない19年前の復讐とやらはこのわらわが買おうぞ
崖下の二人
Okay, so she saw them.
私は青ざめました
Obviously, this isn't exactly what happened since the guy came back, I think, but I mean, we'll see.
大騒ぎになりました大至急船で病院に運びましたがあの高さで即死を免れただけでも奇跡使用人もそして赤ん坊も死にました私はお父様から赤子を預けられ3日も経ないうちに主人は出張中でした当時まだお屋敷にお住まいだったローザさんも五遊六軒島には私とお父様しかいなかったそして私とお父様以外誰もよく知らぬ間にどこからともなく赤ん坊が現れそして消えていったあれはそう夢なのよ悪夢お父様は私を責めるに違いないと思っていましたしかし何か様子がおかしかった
What a weirdo.
読めていたぞ読めていたぞこの天罰はなどこまであがくのかどこまで我が物にならぬというのか打ち捨て
When father learned of the accidental death, he kept on laughing and laughing as though there could be no greater pleasure. Enough that just listening to it gave me a creepy feeling. Perhaps something had come loose in his mind. From that day onwards, father shut himself up in the world of the occult even more than he ever had before. When my husband came back, he was surprised to see that father was even more bizarre than he had been before. However, he had already accepted that this would happen sooner or later. Of course, my husband had heard about the baby. However, he told me that it was surely some whim of father's and to forget it. So I forgot it. It was an unfortunate accident. No, there wasn't an accident at all. I forgot everything, even that the baby had existed in the first place. After all, it was a twisted nightmare that lasted not even 3 days. That's right, it was all a nightmare. I don't want to remember. The cliff, the broken fence, the roar of the sea, and the cry of the baby. Yeah. So it didn't actually die, I'm gathering.
くだらぬ。わらわが殺した。すでにこの世にはおらぬわ。
しかし、赤き真実なきが人間の世界。人間の世界に信用できることなどありません。
そうね。ベアトは確かに殺したわ。でも人間の世界では生きていることになっているのかもしれない。本当に生きているのかどうかはともかくね。
実は生きていたというのですか？あの高さからあの岩場に転落して。
わからぬ。だが落ち着け。そやつがどうそなたを憎もうとも真実は事故だ。そなたを恨もうなどお門違いもいいところよ。
でもたとえ指一本触れていないとしても私は心の
落ち着け。19年前の男が何を恨もうと叫ぼうとそなたを追求できる罪などあるわけもない。
Having weird like emotions and stuff within the first 3 days of that whole situation is, I mean, yeah, it's not that it's right, but it's understandable.
だから落ち着け。19年前の男はわらわの来客として迎えてやろうぞ。碑文の謎を解かれお役はごめんかと思っていた矢先だ。わらわの最後の客としてもてなしてやらねばな。
面白くなってまいりましたな。ゴールドスミス教の秘密を守るのに加え19人目の来客、さらに19年前。
そうね。金蔵が生きてると主張する私たちにとってその19人目の駒に面白いじゃない。ワクワクするわ。
相手にとって不足なし。わらわの茶会の来客が一人では物足りないと思っていたところよ。来るがよい。
Furuta Erika is Lady Burncastell's piece. In that case, whose piece is the man from 19 years ago? The voice faintly seeping from the other end of the line was Natsui's.
わかりました。今すぐ寝ます。部屋も出ません。電話も出ません。だから夫と娘には。
Even this begging scream, which should shake the heart of any listener, could be listened to with a cold and ruthlessness through the end of the receiver.
母さんが俺の約束を守る限り、あんたの秘密は守ってやる。
I feel like this voice sounds eerily similar to Battler. I don't know if it's the same voice actor or not, but
約束を破るなよ。俺はもうお前のすぐ近くにいる。部屋の明かりが消えるかどうか、そして電話をしているかどうかさえ、俺さえ望むなら。
That's a bit creepy.
あんたの寝顔にキスすることだってできるんだからな。
守ります。約束は守ります。だからやめて。もうやめて。やめて。
I think she wants him to stop it. The receiver slammed down. He knew very well the way you hang up a phone can leave a nasty aftertaste on the other side.
じゃあね。
So it's Lambda Delta's piece? That's what I was guessing.
はい、一丁上がり。これで夏日は今夜は部屋から出てこないわ。
器用ね。あんた、声を変えられるの？
声くらい誰だって変えられるわよ。パパにおねだりの時は甘い声。学校休む時は風邪っぽい声。実は嫌いな友達に断る時は申し訳なさそうな声。
お望みなら
どんな声でも
使い分けて
見せるけど。
あんた魔女やめたら声優になるといいわ。
Makes it funnier since a voice actress is doing this.
これでお互い駒の準備は OK かしら。フルドエリカ、なかなか素敵な駒じゃない。演者なんかよりはるかにベルにふさわしい駒だわ。お褒めに預かりまして光栄です、ラムダデルタ卿。こちらこそよろしくよ。素敵だわ。本当に可愛い。
Lamada's is so cute.
魔女幻想に屈服させて、その顔を屈辱に歪めてやりたいわ。
だそうよ。私に恥をかかせないでよね。演者よりはるかに使える駒だってことを見せてちょうだい。
お任せを、ベルンカステル卿、我が主。私はあのようなネクラで低能で可愛げのかけらもない駒とは違います。ほんとよね。演者なんてクズ肉になってバトラを焚きつける以外何の役にも立たなかったわ。家族愛とか兄弟愛とか私たちは全然興味ないの。私たちが見たいゲームはもっとえぐくてドロドログロテスクでポップでキュートな殺人事件だもの。
夏日がキングでベアトがクイーンってとこかしら。夏日をかばって群がる魔女と家具たちはチェスの駒というよ。
ボーリングのピって感じ。夏日にベアと金蔵にガラクタ家具の幻想たち。私たちを楽しませてみせなさいよね。特にベアと。私たちもうあんたには飽きてるの。あんたの魔女伝説殺人ごっこはもうおしまい。あんたの出番もおしまいってわけ。このゲーム版はもう私とベルンがいただいたわ。あんたなんて私たちの駒に落ちぶれて永遠に遊ばれてるのがお似合いよ。
夏日もベアトも薄汚い真実という腹渡を薄皮一枚で包んだだけのズタ袋だわ。それをズタズタに引き裂いて中身を引きずり出すことこそいいえ、私たちの数少ない娯楽なの。
楽しく遊べるわよ。ねえ見てる？ベアトリーチェ、あんたのゲーム版はこんなにも楽しく遊べるのよ。私が見せてあげるわ。本当に楽しい第5のゲームをね。
私たちばっかり気持ちよく喋っちゃベアトにも喋らせてあげたら。
だそうよ。特別に発言を許すわ。今回のゲームの抱負でも言っちゃったら。何もないって。そうよねそうよね。あんたバトルに屈しちゃった負け犬だもんね。私に任せなさい。魔女側優勢に一気に流れを変えてあげるから。ただあんたという駒はサクリファスさせてもらっちゃうけどね。
碑文も第一の番以前にあっさり解かれ黄金
Yeah, these girls are
夏日の
savage.
幻想として駒に残れてよかったじゃない。もうあんたの扱いは駒じゃなくてピンなんだけどね。
黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェなんて、あんたとその家具たちは私のゲームではほんのちょい役やられ、気持ちよーくすっ飛ばされて私とベルのおもちゃにされなさいよ。
嫌ならやめてって一言言ってみて。
嫌じゃないって。
Jeez.
あんたピン確定ね。
There's no need for the Golden Witch anymore. All that's needed is a sacrificial doll so the two witches can enjoy some time playing. Die, disappear. Confess your filthy past and your crimes. Speak out your sob story of regret and repentance as you throw yourself off a cliff and die. The Golden Witch will never again have her turn. This will probably turn out to be a nasty game. Oh, you think? On the surface it looks similar to the usual tales. However, there's no respect given to the true main character of this story. This tale was supposed to be one of the Golden Witch Beatrice invited Ushiromi Battler to see. However, the host has been lost, and there are no longer any guests. The one who did the inviting and the one who was invited are no longer around this horrible tale. Welcome to the 5th game. End of the Golden Witch. Welcome to the banquet without the guests of honor, hijacked by evil witches.
いいバトラー、いよいよ2日目を始めるわよ。私はベアトみたいにトロい展開は嫌い。
好きにしやがれ。お前が何をかき回そうと。俺は必ずこのゲームの真相にたどり着いてやる。
そうでなくては困ります。妹さんのためにもしっかり戦わなくちゃ。ご安心を。ラムダデルタ卿はベアトリーチェのマヌケと違い、はるかに恐ろしい相手ですが、私がしっかりサポートするので問題ありません。私と一緒に今度こそ魔女幻想を暴いてやろうではありませんか。
お前なんか知らねえ。ベアとのゲームにいなかった存在など俺は認めもしないし必要ともしない。
強がり言ってる場合ですか。まあお互いせいぜい頑張りましょう。一緒に魔女幻想とやらを引き裂いてやりましょう。
Erika offered me her hand to shake. Instead of just passively ignoring this, I gave her a proactive and clear acknowledgement by knocking her hand aside.
握手は嫌いだそうよ。エンジェと同じなのね。
ご安心を。私はエンジェよりはるかに役立つ駒です。バトラさんの闘志を回復する以外何もできなかったひき肉とはわけが違います。
Yeah, that's not the nicest thing to say to someone about their sister, but
頼もしそうな仲間に恵まれて嬉しいわね。かつてはワルギリアにロの上、エンジェまで来てくれたわ。そしてとうとうベルにエリカまで。あんたを応援してくれる駒たちはこんなにもたくさん。それでも未だに真相の尻尾すらつかめない無能っぷりってどんな気持ち？どんな気持ち？
関係ねえの。これは俺とベアとの戦いだ。その他の誰であろうと関係ねえ。
ああ、そうなの。やっと独り立ち。いっつも誰かに助けられ情けをかけられてばかりのあんたがどこまで一人でできるやら。楽しませてもらうわ。
取り戻す。これは俺たちのゲームだ。お前たちはお呼びじゃね
え。ええ、そう。これはあなたたちのゲームだわ。なら取り戻してごらんなさいよ。手加減だらけだったベアとのゲームさえ勝てなかったあんたが、誰の助けもなく一切の容赦のないラムダのゲームをどこまで戦えるのか。
ではお目覚めなさい、後ろ宮バトラー。ようこそ10月5日の朝へ。
alright, let's see who's dead. Was it someone's alarm clock? Beep beep. An electronic tone repeated and rang out through the room. Battler, who had gone to bed late, and had not managed to get enough sleep, covered his head in blanket and waited for someone to turn off the alarm. But no matter how much time passed, the electronic tone did not stop. I see. The point of the alarm isn't just to be loud enough to wake you up, but to be annoying enough to keep you from wanting to fall back asleep. Hey, the alarm's going off. Make it stop, please. Why do waking up voices always get this annoyed? Well, it does make sense. After all, people are still sleepy and in a bad mood. However, there wasn't absolutely no sign that my annoyed voice had caused anyone to turn over in their sleep, or crawl out of bed to stop the alarm. Is everyone dead there? Letting out a deep sigh, I stumbled to my feet. With the shutters on the windows, there was almost no light getting in, and the room was as dim as it had been earlier. Though, even without the shutters, there's no way this dull weather would let in enough sun to make this a pleasant morning. Because they were still wrapped up in their beds, sound asleep, taking no notice whatsoever of that beeping. Normally, once any one person gets up, the others tend to automatically follow. Annoyed that this law of serial summer camp awakenings that I made up had been broken, I searched for the source of the sound. I could hear it coming from a wristwatch set on the table. Judging by the sound of the watch, it was probably George's. Anyway, when I randomly pushed a small button on the side of it, the sound stopped. Apparently, it had been set for 7 in the morning. Is it already 7? Sorry, but I don't really feel like I slept at all. Playing cards were left on the table as though he had stopped mid-game. The game had probably been 7s. Damn it, I've already got this piercing headache. What the hell happened last night? That mountain of gold and subsequent argument between the relatives all feel like a bad dream. Breakfast normally came at 8. Now wasn't a bad time to start getting up and getting dressed. Even those adults wouldn't argue in front of the cousins. In that case, I'll stay with my cousins all day long, and I'm sure they'll be able to separate me from the annoying talk about gold and being the successor and all. Okay, so George, Jessica, Maria. All 3 should be in there, probably dead. In fact, I should have done this from the beginning. I felt disgusting having slept with my clothes on last night, which caused me to get all sweaty. I guess I'll take a shower. I'm sure the others will want to as well. At this age, it's embarrassing to wake them by shaking their shoulders. If I turn on the TV, everyone will probably wake up. Well, let's at least turn on the lights for now. In this dim light, the quiet sound of the never-ending wind and rain, it doesn't really feel like morning has come yet. I flipped the light switch, and then the dimly lit morning ended. Called that, didn't I?
George! あんまりやないか。こんなマネがどうして許されるんや。
They clung to Anaki's corpse, which would never wake up again. Aunt Ava and Hideyoshi cried.
もうおよしなさい。ジョージ君がこんな姿をお二人に見せたいと思うわけがない。
姉貴、気持ちはわかるが、今は南條先生に任せるんだ。
あんたにはわかんないわよ。ジョージが殺され、ジョージ
南條先生のジョージのこんな無体な姿をジョージのために今は耐えるんや。
When Aunt Ava tried even harder to cling to that corpse, Dad and Hideyoshi dragged her away and had a heated debate with her beside the wall.
いやよ、いやジョージ、南條先生、手当てをして。血が足りないなら輸血を。
Homie's dead, man.
私とジョージは同じ血液型です。だからお願い、南條先生。
お気の毒だが。 今のジョージ君に必要なのはあなたの血ではないのです。
Oh, I softly pulled the blanket up covering George's corpse. His neck was split wide open. It was probably larger and deeper than his mouth. Would covering that part up make the corpse look neat and clean? Of course not. The large amount of blood loss stained the bed a horrible red and black. And even covering him with a blanket couldn't hide the traces. After all, even the blankets had large red-black stains, and covering him with it made his corpse look even more gruesome. So I stripped the blanket off the bed and placed it on top of the first one. There were only 2 extra blankets, so if I covered one more of the corpses, we wouldn't be able to cover anymore. I felt bad about the ones we can't cover. But for some reason, times like these made me feel like muttering, "Don't complain about being unfair," inside my head.
キリエ、みんなに毛布をかけてやれ。風邪をひいちまう。
Kiria and I started covering the other corpses on their heads with the blankets, just like George's, so that they wouldn't have to undergo any more shame with their terrible wounds exposed like this. In one bed rested Jessica. Jessica was exactly the same as George. Though she appeared to be resting quietly in bed, her neck had been sliced deep and the wound had been laid open in a brutal way. Maria was the same. And not only Maria, there was one more victim. Lying on the same bed as though they'd been sleeping alongside each other was Aunt Rosa. Oh! Okay. Okay, so that's 4. George, Jessica, Maria, and Rosa. So we need 2 more if they're going by the thing at all. So maybe Cannon and Shannon. And this were 4 humans who had been killed, their necks sliced open. They'd probably been like that since last night. I returned without noticing anything, gotten in bed and fallen asleep. All of them had a horizontal cut across their throats. I had been forced to see all the way into the depths of those gashes in everyone's throat. At worst, the wounds might have been deep enough to stretch halfway through their necks. Ugh. If you tried to open it up, you'd probably be able to see that the gash stretched all the way to the bone. The only wounds were the single gashes on each neck. So if you cover up their necks with your hand, you might be able to persuade yourself that they were merely sleeping. But even so, this frightening deep wound was incredibly gruesome. There's no such thing as a clean or dirty way of killing. All methods of killing are equally brutal, but even so, the brutality here was just horrible. And then there was one more thing that adorned these brutal murders, making them even more unsettling. Drawn very large on the wall was something like an eerie magic circle. It was drawn in the bright red paint that looked like blood, and made it look as though some creepy ceremony had taken place in this room, with the 4 of them offered as human sacrifices. However, that wasn't what we were concerned about. No one had the heart so cold they witnessed the deaths of those close to them, and still worry about some scribbles on the wall. Oh my god. The girl who bragged that she drew more pleasure from the process of exposing truth than the truth itself, and who went as far as to call herself an intellectual rapist, appeared in the hall. When she saw the extraordinary creepy magic circle in this gruesome room, she heard that it was unmistakably a sigh of admiration escape her lips.
さっきから廊下で話を聞かせてもらっています。お亡くなりになられたのは4人ですか？心よりお悔やみを
She's so
申し上げ
creepy,
ます。
like, on Erika's face? No, that's not it. It was in her eyes. In Erika's eyes I could see an indiscreet smile that was hard to describe. She found this interesting. She found the outbreak of a crime interesting. It was like the smile of a kid off to the side of the stage before her turn to appear in a school play.
すまねえな、エリカちゃん取り込み中だ。部屋で待っててくれるか？
そういうわけには参りません。現場検証は探偵の権利ですので。
お前に用はないと言ってんだぜ。部外者はおとなしく引っ込んでろ。
現場検証を妨害というのが私の持論です
Oh my gosh.
お前の都合など知るか。出ていけ。お前なんかお呼びじゃね
エリカちゃん、ほんまにすまんが部屋にも今は取り込み中なんや。
ジョージジョージ。
Ava seems pretty sad.
どいてください。現場検証できません。
え。もしそれが必要なら俺たちがするし、お前にみんなの亡骸をさらに恥ずかしめる権利なんかあるわけがねえ。
探偵権限。探偵は全ての現場を検証する権利を持つ。そこをどきなさい。
Dang,
後ろ宮バトラー。これは人間側に認められたゲームの正当な権利よ。
These words, which seemed to be utterly ridiculous at first, were words of power that had come from a world on a much higher plane than the one they were in. Battler was thrown back by an unseen power and landed on his butt. Interesting. Struck silent by this quiet intensity, nobody was able to prevent Erika from entering the room, suffocated by this bizarre atmosphere.
ご安心を。死者の尊厳を犯すことが目的ではありませんので、別に。喉の切り口なんておぞましいもの。私が知りたいのはもっと別のことです。つまり、この殺人を誰が南條先生。それから皆さん、特に第一発見者のバトラさん。いろいろとお尋ねしたいことがありますので、ご協力をお願いします。
だから何の権限があってだよ。
私が探偵だからよ。
Detective's authority. Battler couldn't argue against this incomprehensible nonsense. No, he wasn't permitted to argue. It was a restriction placed on the pieces. Erika summoned Dr. Nancho and heard the details of his preliminary examination of the corpses. Normally, you wouldn't have spoken to that to an outsider so casually. However, for some reason, the atmosphere about this place had become one in which hiding things from Erika was forbidden.
さて、ラムダの第一の晩、楽しませてもらおうかしら。死体は4つ ?2 つ足りないわ。まあ、6人殺す義務もないわけだけど、あの子、空気読める子だから、あと2人もどこかで殺してるに違いないわ。
On the wall was a magic circle representing the first Twilight, similar to the ones in Beato's games. Giggle. That girl talks tough, but I wonder just how closely she'll be able to imitate Beato. That Hebrew scripture sure is crappy. Oh, that Hebrew sure is crap. Okay. It isn't written exactly right.
何これ？どういうこと？どうして魔法陣が？きっとベアトリーチェ様の真似がしたかったのよ。
Looking like a freak right now.
へったくそな魔法陣。
真似どころじゃないわよ。人間の誰かがベアトリーチェ様の仕業に見せかけるためにわざわざ書いたんだわ。とにかくベアトリーチェ様に報告を。
I'm gonna end here for today because I feel like this is a solid stopping point because we're about to get into an investigation. So let's. Certainty, absolute certainty. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and in here, pretty solid episode. We have all the stuff with Natsui that's kind of crazy with the being given a kid and then the kid apparently died, but now someone's saying they're that kid. And then Battler's the truth about his birth, that's something we're supposed to find out today. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that. And yeah, should be filming another one pretty soon. I know I've been saying that recently, but yeah, lots of stuff going on. So yeah, again, I keep apologizing, but yeah, I will be getting more regular in this. Just started my new job 2 weeks ago, so was getting used to my new schedule and stuff, and trying to make sure I'm doing my new job well. So yeah, kind of had to focus on that. Got sick and stuff too. So yeah, it's been a long bit of, honestly, been a long like month and a half. So yeah, thanks guys.